bringing you in-depth discussion from one of the rad groups of online writers covering the Edmonton Oilers. Are you ready for Oilers Overtime? Join us as we talk news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and more. All featured on one of the most glorified teams in the NHL. From the great one to the next one. From the boys on the bus to the decade of darkness. This is Oilers Overtime.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of THW Oilers Overtime. Not your regular host here with you today. It's Julian Mangiulo, regular on the show, but Jim is with his son playing, watching his hockey, taking him to hockey. So it's playoff game, big game. He had to miss it. We don't blame him, so we wish them the best of luck out there, and hopefully they can get the win. But I'm here with some of my regulars here. So we have Colton Pankey with us. How's it going, Colton?
I'm good, Julian. Thanks for stepping in and hosting again. I'm excited to get going.
Yep, big show. We got lots to talk about. Brian's with us. Brian Swain's with us as well. Brian, how's it going today?
Doing well. Lots to talk about. Finally, this is it. This is the last one before the trade deadline, and we can talk about something else. That's
it. We're a lot of anticipation, lots of stuff to get to. But we'll start with the Barnburner of a game with the 7-5 victory over the Detroit Red Wings. So, Oilers had a 3-0 lead to start the game, chased Greiss out of the net. Great start. Everybody was rolling pretty well. Detroit gets one back and, they start giving up goals. Koskinen kind of has a little bit of a blunder there again, costs them another goal, and it ends up being a pretty tight game, but the Oilers find a way to kind of get it done at the end, 7-5. I think it was one or two empty netters. I'm not sure. I think it was just the one. But they get the job done, and that's, I guess, they don't care. We don't care how the points come this time of year. So we'll start with you, Colton. What was your anything you've seen from the game that you liked or didn't like?
I mean, you touched on quite a bit of it. That start was kind of like, what is going on? They were just like, I think they were up 3-0 before Detroit even had a shot on net. So they came out flying. And then you see with teams, lots of times they say the 3-goal lead's always the worst one to have kind of thing. And they really let off the gas. But I do think it says a lot about them. Just the fact that when Detroit tied it up, it kind of had like the, oh, here we go again feeling. I think there was a game against Ottawa earlier in the season that they ended up losing. And the fact that they were able to kind of calm things down, get composed again. Koskinen had a couple weak goals, and then we've talked about his mental, kind of how he sometimes struggles with the mental side of the game, and he ended up making some good saves after those couple questionable goals he let in. So I think just the whole team was able to regroup, and I think that has a lot to do with coaching and just the entire mindset right now. So obviously it's not what you'd like to see giving up that big lead, but I think overall there are some positives to take from it.
Yeah, it was definitely good to see them, Koskinen, be able to rebound the way he did instead of, fall further down the hill like you've seen in the past, for sure. Brian, was there any specific players or anything you liked or that you saw in the game that you want to touch on?
I'm going to follow up a bit on what Colton said there, because I both agree and disagree with it. I agree with the fact that it was great to see them not, I mean, how many times did they have a 1-goal lead and it was blown, right? They went ahead, It was 4-3, then 5-4, got tied up both times. They came back and answered the bell each time. So I think, like you were saying, that's a great sign about this team. On the flip side of that, I thought they let Detroit I thought they took the foot off the gas a little bit when it was 3-0 and then 4-1. And I think you don't want to be as encouraging as it was to have them show that fortitude to get back in the game. It was discouraging to see them not maybe have that mentality to, shut the door when they had that early 3-goal lead.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit did this already once before to the Leafs. I watched that game, and that was kind of the similar type of game, back and forth. And it was good to see that Woodcroft stuck with Koskinen instead of changing it up and maybe causing the team more grief down the line than it would have if he just left him in there. So I think that was a wise decision that he made. And I just think the guys rallied well, and not every game is going to be a perfect game. I think this is one you might want to just flush and hope for, the best on the next one and clean up some areas of their game. But points are points this time of year, like we've already said. And I mean, however they come because the Pacific Division standings are getting tighter and tighter. So it was good to see them kind of grind it out for sure. So to that point, let's start looking ahead to next game. So it looks like Benson gets waived today. It looks like Puljujarvi is going to be the one to come back. I think he's going to be ready for Thursday's game against Buffalo. We'll start with you, Brian. What is Benson being waived a result of maybe him not performing well, or is this more of Brad Malone putting himself in a position where he should be in the lineup?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. I'm disappointed to see Benson get waived. I mean, the kid's basically reinvented himself this season. He's done, he's gone out of his comfort zone, become basically a different player. He's done whatever it is taken to stay on this roster. But I mean, he is what he is. He scored 1 goal this season. He's been playing like 6 or 7 minutes a night since the coaching change. So, Brad Malone's brought more. And as much as it's disappointing to see Benson, because I just think the world of him and everything he did to get himself to fight for a spot on this team. Puljujarvi coming back, and obviously Archibald adding another body to the forward mix. It was a numbers game, and he lost.
Yeah, so if I agree, I think he's done everything the right way. Came up from the minors, did what he had to do down there. 36 goals or 36 points in 36 games last year, and it just hasn't manifested for him in the NHL. I mean, the opportunities are there, but he's never really gotten a shot at the top 6, which or the run and with the ice time. But Colton, do you think this is someone they should look to, if he does clear, maybe look to trade, or is he kind of a guy that he might have a role moving forward, maybe say next season in a usable role in the bottom 6?
No, I even thought coming into this season, his chances already kind of had passed, but I did think bringing in Woodcroft would maybe help him a bit, like one of those players, just because they have the experience together down in Bakersfield, but it still just didn't work. I don't think his skating's there, but having said that, I think he's still young enough and has showed enough talent in the AHL that I wouldn't be too surprised if a team does take a flyer on him. But if not, I can't see much trade value there. I mean, if he's not getting claimed right now at all, I can't really see many teams trading for him, but see what happens, I guess, in the offseason.
What do you guys think the future potentially, if he has a future as a long-term NHLer, what is it? Because he was always thought of as a scorer. This year, he's got by as being a grinder. Like I say, he reinvented himself. Is that how he carves out a career, or is there still potential for him to be a 15-goal guy in this league?
Well, I think you can have a good season or a couple good seasons in a row that'll put him in that kind of conversation. I think he can be a third line guy with scoring upside, that more like a utility player, if you will, or you kind of shuffle him up and down the lineup. I think he's a usable player on a worse team than the Oilers. But I think it was, like you said, it's a numbers game, and unfortunately he's the one who was the odd one out. But I'd be surprised if Holland didn't already try to look to move him. And I'm probably thinking that he probably couldn't, and that's why he was forced to send him down. He'll probably stay with the organization. So with that, then Puljujarvi's coming back. The lines have been pretty steady these last couple of games, and everyone's been playing really well. They get a good strong game against Tampa. A lot of contributions from different people, and a lot of contributions last night with 7 goals. I'd hope so. But where does Puljujarvi now slot in? Because do you disrupt that top 6 to put him back in there? Or is this where you kind of leave things status quo up there and kind of slot him in as needed closer down to your depth and maybe give him some special teams? Colton, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what you said at the end there, I think I would have originally said play him with McDavid again, but I think Yamamoto's kind of stepped up as of late. So I think they'll kind of ease him back into it. He's obviously had some time off here. So like you said, I think special teams and then kind of just ease him back up. I do expect at some point we will see him on McDavid's wing again, but I think right now things are going pretty good, 3-game win streak and all that. So I don't think they'll change too much in that top 6.
Yeah. Brian, do you feel the same way about that?
Yeah, I pretty much echo that. I feel more confident icing, coming out there next game or whenever Puljujarvi's back with the same top 6, and then that top 6 will be able to function better than if they had thrown Puljujarvi right back in there. Let him get his feet wet again. ease back into things in the bottom six, and then if it looks like basically don't fix what ain't broke, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's clicking right now, so why mess with that? And then if the time comes when, and it will, it probably won't be long before they're going to need a shake up. Then you have your move to make, and you've eased Puljujarvi back into things. So yeah,
I kind of agree with that. I think it'll come sooner than later. I think by the end of the next game, if it's not going as well as they thought, or by the end of the next game, I think I would be shocked if we didn't see Puljujarvi back in that top six and maybe Hyman move back over to the left side. And
you think the leash is that short?
It's not about the leash being that short. I think that as long as Puljujarvi is showing that he's back to the level he was before, I think it's more of wanting to get him going and be able to add the depth lower in the lineup with someone more familiar like McLeod, where he would kind of move back down into that third line role still, and maybe push Hyman back over to the left side. I don't think it's a matter of who's playing good or bad. I just think that ideally those are going to be your lines moving forward into the playoff series. And I think that that's more important to make sure everybody's slotted and knows their role, and maybe being able to build that chemistry with certain line mates. I think that goes a little bit further. Before we transition to the next topic and we start talking about the playoffs and the trade deadline, just a reminder to make sure you sign up for the THW Morning Skate newsletter. Just log into the morningskatenewsletter.io, put your email in, and it's got your daily dose of everything hockey, news, rumors, scores, you name it, we got it. So make sure you want to go to the morningskate.io and put your email in and sign up for that. The Oilers are in a playoff spot right now and battling. It's a tight race in the Pacific Division. I have the standings actually here for those of you who want the up-to-date standings. So they are 70 points through 60 games, 4 points back of the LA Kings for second in the division. And the Vegas Golden Knights on a 5-game skid right now, losing some ground and in the second wild card spot right now with 68. So they got a little bit of a cushion there because Vegas has 62 games played. So do you guys think that they're going to make the playoffs at this rate? And is it a matter of how good they're playing or the teams around them not being good enough? Colton, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, it's tough, right? Because coming into the season, I think pretty much everyone thought Vegas and Edmonton was going to kind of duel it out for that top spot. And then Edmonton's we know the inconsistencies, and Vegas has had just tons of injuries all season long. So I think Edmonton does get in, but I do think Vegas will kind of pick it up here. Like you said, they're on a 5-game skid. I don't think they're going to just go down this easy. So I still kind of see LA falling off. I've said that for a while. I know there's only like 20 some games left now, but yeah, I think Edmonton does get in, but it's going to be tough. Like they're not going to be able to go through any kind of skids like we've seen them do throughout this season. They have to kind of keep their foot on the gas the rest of the way here.
Yeah, I think what's working for them in their favor is that, they have a couple games in hand against the teams they're chasing and the ones behind them. Two of those, they have two of them in hand. They probably won't catch the Flames, but the Kings are pretty beat up right now on their blue line, which is very tough. They got Doughty out. They got Matt Roy out. They got a bunch of guys out right now. So they're going to be in tough heading down this stretch. And Vegas is the same way with their goaltending. They are lost 5 straight. Their goaltending hasn't been good. Brossoit's allowed 4 goals in his last, or 4 more goals in 3 of his last 4. And Logan Thompson's a rookie and he hasn't been playing well. So to that point, Brian, do you think that the Oilers will move up in the standings, or do you think they'll finish in the 3rd spot, or you think they could get up to that 2nd spot?
Yeah, in this division, I think they could. This is probably the weakest division in the whole NHL right now. So I think, and this has come from somebody who 10 days ago was saying they're probably not going to make the playoffs. So I think now that they're in, it's just a matter of where. I wouldn't mind, to be honest, if they drop into one of the, I guess the 2nd wild card spot, because that would finally give us a Flames Oilers playoff series that we have not had for 31 years. I'm probably the only one here who was alive when these teams have played in the playoffs. So it's like, we've been waiting for this forever. One team, there's been a few years when they could have matched up in the 2nd round, but one or the other has always blown it in the 1st round. So I'm almost hoping they just get that slip into the wild card so we can get the Calgary Edmonton Battle of Alberta finally.
I am all for that. I definitely wasn't alive when that first one came out. So I would love to see that. I think it would bring the best of both teams. But I also think a team to watch would be Vancouver. I think they're pretty streaky right now. And I think, they can even push LA down. I do think the Edmonton Oilers have a good enough team that they'll be able to get into that second spot in the division and actually get home ice advantage, which is crazy to think because like you said, Brian, we were singing a very different tune about a week or two ago of where they were. And I even wrote an article saying that they should focus on a retool. And here we are with them.
Give it a week, man.
Some games in hand.
Change our tune again.
That's it. So, I mean, a couple of days and we're going to be singing another song. So, yeah, that's a situation to monitor all across the league for sure. That trade deadline's coming up. It's on the 21st, I believe. The 21st or 22nd?
21st.
So Monday, whatever that is.
Monday. Yeah, that's the 21st.
Yeah.
So 21st. So the Oilers, not sure what they want to do yet. We've heard some rumblings about Holland kicking tires and some players. Before we get into specifics on trades and what they kind of need, is there any prospects? We know Holland's reluctant to give up anything of value really that he would like to see. He would rather like to see it in his own roster. Is there any untouchable prospects, Brian, that you think should not be moved no matter what? They need to stay in this organization and develop.
Prospect is somebody who's not on the Oilers roster right now?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay, Stuart Skinner.
Okay.
But honestly, that's about it. So
everybody else would be available.
I like a lot of I don't think I'd move Samorukov. The defenseman, I like the defenseman, and I'm trying to think who's down there right now. Like right now, Broberg is up. Is Niemelainen?
I think Niemelainen's down there.
Yeah, so him as well.
Okay.
So those three guys I probably wouldn't move. I would actually, and this will probably be a hot take, but I like even guys like Xavier Bourgault, the top pick from last year. I would consider moving him. Probably not Holloway either. The more I think about this, I mean, those are guys that I think could fetch you a lot, and you're tempted to move. But I mean, that's also a thing. Like, boy, if you look, and 2 years from now, this guy's potting 30 goals for somebody else. That's tough to swallow.
That would be a tough pill to swallow. Colton, do you sing the same song as that? Do you think that there's a group of guys here that the Oilers can't afford to lose?
I mean, it's so tough to say. Like, if they're getting a guy back that's just a really good player and maybe has term left or whatever it may be, then sure. I don't see them making a big enough move where they would even have to get rid of the guys Brian mentioned. Like, I would be pretty hesitant on trading Holloway. They just don't have the cap room to bring in any players. I don't think that would work with that anyway. So I agree with the guys Brian said. I think they are all tradable, but you would need a significant piece coming back, which I just don't see happening.
Yeah, like we said, he's reluctant to make those big deals, and we haven't seen it yet since he's been here. Really, it's been a bunch of minor moves. I'm kind of the idea that you pick one of each position that you're not going to move, and whichever ones those are. So for me, it would be Holloway at forward. You don't touch Samorukov on defense, and then you don't touch Stuart Skinner. Everybody else is on the table because you got to give something to get something. And if those are players guys want, I think they do have a good group of options, right? So if someone does want, let's say, Samorukov rather than Niemelainen dangling down there, I mean, I think I'd be okay with that, knowing that I have another guy that I like. So I think they are flexible in that regard. But those three were the guys that came to mind for me.
You say for forwards, would you trade Bourgault?
I would, if the right deal came along, I think that's something you would have to explore, because to me, Bourgault's a little bit of ways away. Is he really going to help the team now if McDavid and Draisaitl are in their prime, ready to do something in the playoffs? To me, it's worth it to let a guy like that go and try your luck at what you have now, right? Like, you can't keep waiting forever for guys to just develop and hope that they're going to be something that who knows if they'll ever get there. Prospects are funny because you never know what could happen. You could pick a guy in the 7th round and he'll be your franchise player someday. So that's the beauty of drafts, I guess. So sticking along those lines of trading and who's going to go, the Oilers have, I believe they don't have a second round pick this year because it was in the Duncan Keith and or is that a third that can go to a second?
It could be either. I can't
I
remember
think it's
how
a
far
second if they go deep, past into the final and Keith has to play a certain amount of minutes or something.
Yeah.
So they don't have a third and a fourth right now. And the third can become a second, in this year. So they have a little bit of play with their picks to dangle around and kind of do some shopping at the deadline. Before I send this over to you guys, some names that I kind of like that they could explore. I think they do need to try and address the goaltending. It's very good to be very dependent on who's available. As we see the standings keep rolling along and shuffling through the weekend. So that'll come down to the wire, but I still think Braden Holtby is a guy that they should consider to be able to kind of help them if they're going to look at that. And Dallas is kind of on the bubble for a spot there. So that one will come down to the wire. So I think Holtby is still in the mix for someone they could target. Martin Jones with the Flyers might be provide a little bit of a boost for them because he's done it in the past as well. And he probably won't cost you much. But on defense, I think they do need to add a little bit of depth. So a guy that comes to mind for me is Carson Soucy from Seattle. I kind of like he's got a little bit of term left at 2.75, plays the left side. And I think that you kind of want right now, you got Broberg in that last spot or kind of whoever fills in. So Legason and kind of a rotation of guys. So I think a little bit of stability there would be something that they should look to acquire. And I think that he has a little bit of extra term. We got another year left at 2.75. So that term is something that's, easy to fit under their cap situation. So that's a guy I like. Is there any players, Colton specifically you like, or anything to piggyback off of the players I like?
For goalies, I'm not so crazy about Jones, but I do think Holtby, especially just at $2 million, would be an option to kind of split with Koskinen. And I think Koskinen's played, aside from last night where I had mentioned a couple soft goals, but he's played phenomenal lately. But I just have zero confidence in Mike Smith, and I don't know if Stuart Skinner is going to get brought back up. So I do think if there is a goalie to go after, Holtby might be the guy. Having said that, I think Dallas might be in a wild card position right now, or they're very close. So I don't know how quick they'd be to pull the trigger on that deal. But I think Soucy would be an interesting name too. Like you said, a good deal, and he still has term left. So I think that's the big thing is if you are going to pick up some of these guys, having term is definitely helps, especially if it's on a team friendly deal like that.
Yeah. And the market, like we've seen some of these defensemen as we're recording, Sherratt just got moved for quite a haul. And even Yarncroc fetched a second and a third rounder. So the price of the market has been set and that's a steep price to pay. So if you're looking at a guy like, a goaltender on a slim market or one of the more, experienced defensemen that are on the market, like you're going to be paying a pretty penny. I don't think that's something Holland wants to do. Brian, is there anybody that you think that Holland could go after that may not cost as much or that could help them, in a playoff run?
Not really, honestly. I just don't think anything major is going to happen. I talked about it last week, and you gave it some few names there that adding a defenseman wouldn't be a bad idea. I'm surprised that the price is what it is on some of these. The return is what it is on some of these trades now because, like, basically half the Eastern Conference is already out of the playoff picture, right? Like those top 8 spots are pretty much locked. So I thought there'd be a lot of sellers. There would be a buyer's market. That's not how it's shaping up so far. We'll see what happens. But I figured they could probably just go and have their pick of maybe 3 or 4 potentially solid veteran additions on defense to this team without having to give up much, if anything at all. And we'll see now if that's still possible.
Yeah, you think, you have Holland has still a first round pick in his pocket, but you're seeing what everybody's costing. So you would think that you'd be able to get a little bit of a package deal if you're including a first rounder, but it doesn't look like it's going to be like that this year. So he's definitely gonna have to do his due diligence, but I would just hate to see, him kind of middle along with another mediocre trade deadline. That's my only fear is, you're either in and you're out. And I think the division is weak enough that they can make some noise and at least get past the first round. I'm not sure if you guys think that the same way, but if they're matching up against the Canucks, let's say if they squeak in or even the Kings in the mix, even Vegas without a goaltender, I think they are a beatable team. So I think if they're going to make a move, I think this is the year, because we've seen in the past it's just constantly minor moves that really don't get you anywhere. So do you think that it's going to be kind of the same way, Colton?
I agree with you. I do think this would be a great year to go for it. You kind of see the Flames have made some moves here, just with Vegas being weak like they are right now and not having Lehner. But I agree with what Brian said. I don't think much of anything's going to happen. Like, you've seen some stuff today with Dominic Kubalik out of Chicago, which doesn't make much sense to me at all. I think their forward group's pretty solid right now. I think, like you had said, defense and goaltending is more of the issues, but I don't expect much of. I wouldn't be surprised if there's no moves made, honestly.
Yeah. Brian, is there anything you think about that?
Well, I actually agree with you too, that this is a good year to go for it, because I can easily see them coming out of this division. Without question, I could see them winning a couple playoff series. Like, there's nobody that whether it's Calgary, LA, Vancouver, Vegas, whoever they might cross paths with in a series. But you were mentioning, like, you'd be disappointed if Holland doesn't do anything and just keeps middling along. But the thing is, I just don't know what he can do. And he's got himself partially to blame for that, for handcuffing himself with contracts and whatnot. But I don't know. I mean, even let's say that he does decide, okay, I'm going all in this year. What move is out there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure things will become available as the deadline closes down. I don't see him not doing anything. I think there's one or two at least in his bag to be made. Colton, do you feel the same way? Do you think that the Oilers can get out of this division and actually beat the Flames? I for some reason, they always seem to kind of get up for that game, and it's a rivalry game. So I think if they were to meet, it could be something that they could actually accomplish. Do you feel the same way?
Do I think they could? Yes. But at the same time, I'm always big on goaltending. It really helps in the playoffs and wins you series. And I think just the way Markstrom's played, I still think the Oilers really missed out on that. 2 off seasons ago now, I guess. Yeah. I mean, like I said, Koskinen's played well lately, and maybe he can ride that into the playoffs. But I just think Markstrom's an elite goalie, and I think that takes teams a long ways.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they end up. I mean, I think they'll be good enough to land in that second spot. Before we finish up here, let's do the +1, -1. We'll start with you, Brian. Was there anything good or bad that stuck out to you, and who's your +1, -1, or both this week?
I'm going to go Tyler Benson, just because I respect the work he put in to try sticking with this team. And if this was his final hurrah with them, well, you know what? I mean, he did what he could, and I appreciate and respect all the effort he put in. Like we talked about. So I just wanted. I'm going to give a +1, a special shout out to the dearly departed Tyler Benson. For now,
little tip of the cap. See if he sticks around. Colton, who's your +1 or -1 this week?
I'm going to give mine to Brad Malone. I think just how many years now he's spent out of the NHL. I think he's 31 years old. So to work his way back up, get back into the lineup, and then be able to score the other night was a pretty good feel-good story for him. I don't think he'll have much of an impact down the stretch here, but I think it was just pretty cool to see him get that goal.
Yep. No, he's doing his job, and that's all you can expect, especially from the fourth line. And I think he's doing a great job, and that's partially the reason Benson got waived. I'm going to stick with the positives because, they're doing pretty well right now. And I'm going to go with Evander Kane. I just think that he's done a lot that you might even when he doesn't score, he's being effective. You can put him on the top line, the second line, and he seems to be doing all the right things. And it looks like Holland's looking like a genius each passing day. He's got 10 goals on the season now. Gets to the right areas, throws a lot of hits. He's physical. And that's kind of the exact thing you're going to need in the playoffs. So big plus to him, and hopefully he can keep it going. So we'll end off there. We have a big weekend coming up here. We'll see how the standings shake out with the trade deadline coming up. Just a reminder, we at the Hockey Writers here also have a new THW bets, a new betting guide and betting things that you can check out. It's full of fantasy and recommendations for placing parlays, over-unders, money line bets. So be sure to check out the articles from some of the contributors here to see what they are recommending to bet. And don't forget about the morning skate as well. So we'll chat next week, and by that time we'll see what moves Holland will make. and see if we get anything good to be able to help the Oilers down the final stretch here. So for Colton and Brian, I'm Julian. This is another episode of THW Oilers Overtime, and we'll see you next week after the trade deadline.